Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your fave film critic. This is episode 14 of the podcast, starring, produced, hosted by your favorite film critic, me, Dom Griffin. So, thank you for being back here. We've got a lot to talk about this week. I say that I think every episode. I don't think I've actually had an episode yet where I don't have a lot. That's not true. I think I had a couple where I was like definitely pushing it, just definitely like just riffing, which I guess all podcasts are kind of like that. Whatever. Okay. This is episode 2 of October of Hooptober, Hooptober 10, the 2023 edition of the letterboxd horror movie watch challenge. I am recording today's episode one day early. Normally I record Thursday night and then I put it out Friday morning, but tomorrow is Thursday and it's my first day back at work since this staycation is ending. A little bit sad. And right when I get off work, I have to go directly downtown to a press screening for a movie that's like 3 hours long. I'm pretty sure you know what movie it is. It's a movie that's 3 hours and 26 minutes long. I'm very excited to see it. But by the time I get back from that movie, I'm not going to want to fucking record and upload and all this stuff. So I'm just going to do it tonight because I have some time, I guess. That and because I have spent so much of the staycation just watching movies, and I haven't watched any today. I started a movie last night, and I was like, I'll finish it in the morning. And then I woke up today, and I was like, I'll finish this later, which I don't do very often. And since we last spoke, since last episode, I watched 18 movies. 18. And I'm probably going a little bit too hard with this Hooptober thing. And part of the reason is just because I'm about to go back to work and like, you know, it'll be hard to like watch as many movies as I really want to. So I was like, as long as I front load the month, I'll be able to kind of make it there. So we'll talk more about Hooptober when I get to what I watched this week, since it's exclusively what I watched all week. I think I watched one non-horror movie, so we'll talk about that later. We have the usual stuff. We're going to talk about what's going on in the news, and then we'll talk about what I watched, and then we'll answer a couple of questions. I do have another small thing I want to talk about in between the news and what I watched, so we'll get to that. But I hope you guys are all doing good and stuff. I hope everyone's feeling great and in a good mood or whatever, you know. Let's get it started. Let's talk about the news. So let me consult my notes. I have 4 items I wanted to discuss this week. So thing 1, these are all basically just based on like entertainment news stories that I either read the whole article or read some of the article and then just didn't really care that much beyond it. But the first thing I wanted to talk about was the big like Aquaman 2 explainer that came out that I think Variety or the Hollywood Reporter put out. And this hit the group chat, and the headline was essentially like, Aquaman 2 production is troubled, all these problems, and like Jason Momoa is showing up to set drunk, dressed as Johnny Depp to like harass and harangue Amber Heard. And I was like, yo, that's so fucked up. That's like not cool. And then like just how like they were trying to get her off of the movie entirely, and then her ex-boyfriend is Elon Musk, so I guess he was trying to like threaten like to bring all of his billionaire lawyers against the studio if they cut her from the movie and stuff. So I think like James Wan complained about a lot about how it affected the production and stuff. And here's the thing. Every single DC superhero movie post Batman v Superman, Warner Brothers got entirely too involved with tinkering with shit. Like every production story is like, we had a thing, we wanted to do it, and then they just fucked with it and fucked with it and fucked with it. And then whatever came out didn't make enough money, didn't get good enough reviews, rinse, repeat, right? It's kind of an unfortunate thing. But what's funny about Aquaman is that Aquaman, the original one, like did not test well. It did not like, everyone thought it was a piece of dog shit, and then it made $1 billion. Like it got bad reviews. It didn't test well with audiences and stuff. And then they released it, and everyone went to see it because it looked fun, and they had a good time, and they made a bunch of money. Like, I understand with some of these movies, you want to like tinker and protect your investment and all this different stuff, but it's fucking Aquaman. It's not even like a really serious or like prestige approach to Aquaman. It's fucking just Jason Momoa just jacking off, and like they had like octopuses playing the drums and shit. It's like a fun, ridiculous, stupid ass movie. So like the idea of fucking with that and like trying to mess with that to me seems silly. But the stuff about Amber Heard having a hard time on set kind of troubled me a little bit, because I mean, I guess everyone has like their different opinions about this, and I'm not going to get too long into it, but it's like super crazy to me that like Johnny Depp managed to pull off this like PR coup of convincing everyone that like he was 100% innocent and that she's like the devil and that he should just get to go back to being a movie star or whatever, despite the fact that he like looks like shit now and like his performances have gotten like severely worse, and he apparently is such a fuck up that he like can't even memorize his lines on set anymore. People just kind of want him back, I guess. And at some point we definitely will get like the Johnny Depp redemption movie. He'll do some fucking movie that's like watchable enough compared to his last several movies. He'll probably get an Oscar nomination. Like a lot of people want to root for that guy. And I think it's kind of rooted in the fact that the main people I've actually seen defend him the most are like women who want to sleep with him. And I don't know what it is about just like, I don't know, like maybe elder millennials and Gen X women who like liked him in Tiger Beat and just don't want to accept that he's like maybe a bad person or something. But it's astonishing to me actually how people are just like, yeah, I hope Amber Heard dies. And it's like, we don't know her like that. I don't know any, I mean, like it definitely sounds like, you know, their relationship was like fraught and complex and terrible. And, you know, I understand that essentially like the accepted sort of like analysis of that entire thing was that they were both terrible, but she was worse. And it's just kind of crazy to me, whatever. But anyway, I still, you know, whatever you feel about her, I didn't think that that's like a good thing to have to come to set and have like your leading man like treat you that way. I think it's really fucked up. But then I read another article where someone like further dissected it. It was like, actually this stuff comes from like leaked notes from her therapist about how Momoa showing up to set drunk and like disorderly made her think about Johnny Depp. Like it made her think about what it was like dealing with him. Like it triggered her and it gave her like flashbacks. I misread this entire thing, as I think most people did, based off the headline and stuff, that Jason Momoa was like purposely coming to set in Johnny Depp cosplay to like psychologically fuck with her. I just pictured him coming to set dressed as like Jack Sparrow or like Edward Scissorhands, or like Ed Wood, or I don't know. Like that's kind of what I thought had happened. And obviously, I guess what really happened isn't much better. Like obviously, like showing up to set drunk is like unprofessional, and like, you know, braiding your co-stars and stuff, not cool. All those things are bad. I'm not going to argue that, but I really did picture him just showing up to set dressed like Jack Sparrow. I don't even know how that would have worked because like he couldn't shoot his stuff that day. Obviously, I just thought maybe he like came to work in protest of the production and was just like stumbling around with the pirate hat on, and I feel really stupid for having thought that, but I mean that's how the media was portraying it. Like it really made it seem like it was a cosplay situation, like an abusive cosplay situation. I never thought I'd say that phrase out of my mouth, but yeah. The crazy part about all this stuff is all the shit they've done to this movie. This movie is like a nerd, right? Like we know for a fact it doesn't connect to the new Gunniverse DC stuff. Nobody really has like a strong affinity for Aquaman, but like there's not a lot else coming out around that time of December, and it's a big flashy tentpole movie. It's got like explosions and like pretty colors and shit. It might actually still make money. Like it actually might still be financially successful. It's guaranteed to get bad reviews. It's guaranteed to be like shit on, but you know, so was the first one, and it made $1 billion. This thing might really make $1 billion again, or just a significant amount of money. I mean, like, you know, people are going to be bored. Family's going to want to go see something. Why not? So, and I mean, I'm going to go fucking see it. Like, I really like James Wan. I liked the first Aquaman quite a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. And, you know, if he occasionally has to take on these big productions to keep getting Malignants and stuff like that, then that's fine. But I sort of also feel like maybe James Wan's never going to make a big budget movie again, between like doing Furious 7 and Paul Walker dying and now doing this and all this shit. Like, just stick to the rivers and the lakes you're used to, my guy. You know what I mean? Maybe come back to Saw or something. Who knows? But don't bother with this shit anymore. Unless he, like, I don't know, is part of his relationship with Warner Media or Warner WBD or whatever. Maybe James Gunn convinces him to come back to shoot something else. But I don't know. Maybe he should take a break from this shit. So I don't know what you guys think. Are you looking forward to Aquaman 2? Do you think it's going to be watchable? Did you also read this article and think that he dressed up like a Johnny Depp character? Like, that's really what I fucking thought. So I hope I'm not alone in this. Second news item thingy. The trailer for the Iron Claw came out today. The A24 biopic about the Von Erich wrestling family. It's directed by Sean Durkin. I saw his first movie. I remember liking it, but I don't remember anything about it. But it's got a really cool cast. It's got Holt McCallany as Fritz Von Erich, which is insane casting. And then I think Harris Dickinson is playing David Von Erich, I think. And then I think Zac Efron's playing Kevin. And I think old boy from The Bear is playing Carrie. And obviously none of the people they put in this movie are actually quite as big and sizable as the Von Erichs were, but they all look close to the part. And it's believable enough. They all got yoked. It's not the same kind of yoked that I think territory wrestlers had, or specifically the Von Erichs had, but they look good. The trailer looks pretty good to me, I think. Their story is super fucked up and sad, but I think it's also an interesting one. And that era of wrestling, specifically that sort of, you know what, I'm not sure if I'm going to edit that out or you guys are going to hear that, but one of the other reasons I actually record this pod during the day or not on Thursday is that I live directly up the street from a fucking firehouse, and just people just come out of it all the fucking time. I mean, it's awful, right? Because it usually means something bad's happening to someone somewhere, but it's always God damn it, man. So loud. Anyway, yes, I'm aware I could just edit it out or whatever, but I sort of committed to the one take podcast thing. Maybe at some point I'll get sick of doing that and I'll actually be more scrupulous about this stuff. Anyway, tangent. I think the movie looks nice. I think it's probably going to be pretty good. As always, any movie based on wrestling has the potential to be kind of shitty because it's such a weird subculture, and I feel a lot of people that want to tell those stories aren't usually fans or knowledgeable enough about it. I think The Wrestler is probably maybe the best movie about wrestling. It's really good for the most part, even though I think a lot of wrestling people hate it. Jim Cornette hates it because it's such a dour, sad movie. It's going to be kind of hard to make a movie about the Von Erichs. It's not dour and sad. If you're not familiar with their history, there's not going to be a lot of smiles in this movie, but I think the trailer looks good. I think it looks strong. I think the performances are going to be good. I'm just curious to see how much in-ring stuff there is, or how they approach it, really, because there is a spot, and you see in the trailer them fighting the Fabulous Freebirds that looks kind of fake a little bit. There's a way people tend to film wrestling that makes it look kind of silly and cartoony. And I guess if you were making a movie about Hulk Hogan or something and you wanted to film prime 80s Hulkamania stuff, yeah, sure, that's kind of what it looked like. But the Von Erich stuff, the world class championship wrestling, the Texas territory that they were in, it was essentially several good looking, clean cut Christian boys who were real white meat baby faces fighting a bunch of assholes at the Fabulous Freebirds. It was very clear, cut and dried, good guy, bad guy stuff. And then obviously the dramatic dichotomy of that is the fact that in real life those guys were all drinking and doing drugs and destroying themselves because of the horrendous pressure their father put on them. So I mean, that's going to be, I think that could make for a good movie. Whether or not it will remains to be seen, but it'd be kind of cool if there was a movie about the Von Erichs in the Oscar race this year, I mean, that's kind of interesting. I'm very much looking forward to it. I can't wait to see it, honestly. Even if it's not great, I think it's going to be pretty good, or pretty interesting anyway. That's what I think anyway. Speaking of A24, we can move on to my other news note, is that I guess it came out today, in the Wrap. I didn't read the full article because I'm not paying for the Wrap Pro or whatever. And I just kind of read pieces of it from aggregates. But basically, A24 is openly and sort of shifting into wanting to do more IP and more action oriented stuff, more blockbuster level stuff, more tentpole level stuff. And the internet has been in a tizzy over it today so far. And I get why, right? A lot of people like A24 and that there's this studio distributor that puts out, independent film, the way they market it, and their kind of brand identity is very powerful. But they had a $2.5 billion evaluation and stuff, and valuation and on some level the money people are always going to sort of win in Hollywood. And yeah, I mean, their 3 or whatever most successful movies have been 2 horror movies and then a sci-fi action movie. That's basically what Everything Everywhere All at Once is. I mean, everyone likes to pretend that it's it is interesting and different and stuff like that, but people sort of pretend it's drastically different than like a Marvel movie. You know what I mean? Like it kind of isn't really. I mean, like it's, I think tonally and a lot of the execution is like exciting and stuff, but it's like, you know, I sort of hate this thing that happens with people sometimes where they can be snobby in a weird way. And what I mean by that is like, yes, I am someone who wants there to be more diversity in film, wants there to be different kinds of movies made at all different budget rungs, all different perspectives and voices and stuff. Like we need more democratization in our media, right? However, sometimes people make their fucking identity that they like movies that are like different and like not, you know, I don't like that, you know, mainstream action stuff. I like this. And it's like, yeah, but like, if your version of this that you liked has always been from A24, like that right off the bat lets me know that you're not that deep into stuff. You know what I mean? Like A24, I think is like a good gateway shingle for people to start to discover, you know, more art house fare and stuff. And obviously, if they 100% pivot to just making IP and action movies, that is a bummer, and that would be, you know, detrimental, I think, for the industry as a whole. I'm not pro that, but I do think it's a little bit crazy that people are like losing their minds and just jumping to crazy conclusions and being like, oh, they're going to have like an Uncut Gems sequel. I mean, most of this is just for memes, right? They're just, these people are just looking for engagement. Like that's what you have to do. There's a new story. How can I flip this into jokes? How can I flip those jokes into attention for myself? Like I get it. And I'm not judging those people. I'm talking about it on a fucking podcast, obviously. But I don't know. I mean, I guess my initial reaction was like, well, they make a lot of horror movies, and like the horror movies they make don't seem like mainstream horror movies. I mean, like they're their own kind of spin on mainstream, but you know, they made an action movie essentially, which is what Everything Everywhere All at Once is, and it is different in its own way. So who's to say they won't make things that are different too? You know what I mean? Like maybe they'll make an action movie, but it'll be like a different kind of action movie or something. Like, you know, who's to say that they won't put their same curatorial eye towards, you know, a good version of a big budget thing, you know? I mean, they gotta make money. I get it. And the thing is, I'm not against studios diversifying and having some of this, and some of that. So if they're just diversifying to be able to compete and to be able to make movies that make larger amounts of money to help fund other stuff, cool. That's kind of how it used to work, sort of a little bit. But if this just means that all they're going to do is make, you know, big budget movies and shit, then I don't know. Who knows what that's going to look like? Maybe it'll look like the way streamers kind of function, where they are willing to spend more money because they have it, like Apple or Amazon or whatever, but they still put a curatorial eye to stuff. I mean, sometimes they put out garbage, but I mean, sometimes everybody puts out garbage, right? Like some of the fucking art house affair stuff they put out is trash. Like A24 makes bad movies. Indie movies can be bad. They can be shit. So to me, it's kind of all about quality. It's whether or not that quality will persist. I mean, let's say they start putting out 4 or 5 action movies a year and 3 of them suck. That's kind of essentially their same batting average now for non-action movies. So that would be consistent. Now, if it means that they start only putting money into, like, they got the rights to Halloween or something as like it's like a TV series or some shit like that. I'm not 100% on the details because like I saw that and my eyes glazed over and I was like, I don't fucking care or want to know about that. It sounds like a bad idea. But I don't know. Like I like for the most part, I like A24. I like their brand, and they put out some stuff that I really like. But I'm not like dogmatically loyal to them. I could not conceivably care less if they just start making big budget movies. Hopefully they're good, you know. And if they suck, we can make fun of them. But like the idea that they're even exploring the option of developing these things is like getting lambasted. That's kind of crazy to me. And then speaking of studios making fucking Marvel, I guess, publicly brought out that they're like ditching their Daredevil reboot and starting from scratch. They shot like 4 episodes or something I think it was more than 4 episodes. I guess they shot like nearly half of the season order and just ended up saying like, fuck this sucks. This isn't going to work. We'll start from scratch. They let go of the writers, let go of the directors. I guess the issue is that the writers they brought in to do this, who were not affiliated with the Netflix version of the show, like new writers, had essentially pitched the show as being much more procedural, like 1 season long sort of story, sort of what they originally sounds like what they pitched for the She-Hulk show that didn't end up happening. And I guess that didn't end up happening because all the writers realized they're shitty at writing law drama, which to me would mean like, why didn't you just hire different writers? Why would you have a show like She-Hulk where she's a lawyer and then you wouldn't hire any writers who have experience or talent towards writing courtroom? Anyway, whatever. So it sounds like they were doing that for Daredevil, and I guess one of the sticking points was that he didn't put the costume on until the 4th episode. And people were just like, oh my God, how fucking dare you? So they're starting over from scratch. I guess they're going to keep the cast. They're specifically going to keep Charlie Cox. But here's the thing that's a little bit gross about this, is that Marvel is presenting it sort of like, hey, Marvel's kind of finally come around, and they're revamping the way they do television now, and they're going to do it the way everyone fucking does television now. They're just going to have showrunners who are writers and who make series Bibles and shit like that. They're going to plot things like essentially how everyone makes television has for years, with some, small caveats and stuff like that. And they're presenting it sort of like, hey, well, we went through trial and error and realized this is the best way, so we're going to do it now. And completely sidestepping the fact that I'm pretty sure one of the things that the writers won in the strike was that if a show has a showrunner or someone who's in charge of the production, that has to be a writer and they have to be paid a certain way. And Marvel notoriously has not done that on any of these new shows since the Disney Plus. Not like, obviously they had showrunners on the Netflix shows. They had showrunners for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all their other little ancillary shows that no one talks about anymore, like the Runaway show and that stuff. But for all the Disney Plus stuff, it's just been like they've just shot them like big movies. Like, oh, well, it's just a 14-hour movie or whatever the fuck, which is not how television works, which is why all these shows are the kind of shitty and have all these problems. I think the show, I haven't watched any of the season 2 yet, and I might just not, because like, why bother? But I think Loki, I think we can sort of all universally agree that Loki was probably like the closest to being like probably the best Marvel show. And that felt like a show where there was like some cohesion between the person that directed every episode, or most of them or whatever, and then the person that wrote a lot of them and stuff. So clearly this method works. But if you guys, I guess I'll try to remember linking in the show notes, but the article about this has so many like points that are kind of cast out, like, oh, and this happened, that are like so catastrophic and embarrassing, but they're brought out sort of like being like, oh, well, trial and error. And it's like, no, it sounds horrendous. Like, I guess it sounds like the writer who'd been developing Secret Invasion was one of the guys who wrote for Mr. Robot. And they got rid of him and brought in new writers and directors who basically had to figure everything out from scratch, not from scratch, but like heavily changing it. And that those guys were all fighting on the production and stuff. And it's like, you can tell when you watch that show that it's like not cohesive. It's not like any one person's sort of like vision or anything. Even more so than like, yeah, we all complain about how the movies, it feels more like it's Kevin Feige's thing than like whoever the director is and all that. But in television, it doesn't even feel like it's that. It feels like he's not around and they just hire random people and be like, figure it out. We'll fix it in post, figure it out. And they've not been figuring it out. Most of these shows are not succeeding to the level that they seem like they should be, let's say. It's probably the best way to put it. So I think it's good that they're going to start doing things the sort of normal fucking regular way. But I don't like that they're sort of presenting it as if it has nothing to do with the new WGA deal. It's just 100% they figured out this is the best way. Like I'm reading all the quotes from that article in like Kendall Roy's voice when he's like, well, I looked at my dad's plan and my dad's plan's better or whatever. Like, it just sounds like you're just completely fucking made up. Like, you're lying to yourself. You're lying right now. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I know it sounds fucking crazy, but maybe just bring back some of the people from the fucking Netflix show. People like that show. I'm not even saying it was perfect, but it like worked and people enjoyed it. I don't know why you would not want to bring those people around, other than that they want it to be its own thing. But like, maybe that didn't fucking work. Maybe some of those guys would like to get jobs. Maybe give them some jobs. Maybe pay them to come up with some show stuff. I don't know. Maybe. Enough of the fucking news. So I do want to talk about one little thing. I want to talk about Letterboxd. I've been using Letterboxd pretty heavily on my staycation because of all the movies I've watched, which is a ton. We'll get into that. But using this platform to log what I watch, to like keep my diary and make little reviews and stuff, is really fun. And I really enjoy it. And I've talked about that on the pod before. I've talked about it on my YouTube channel before. Like, I like Letterboxd quite a bit. And I know that there's some trepidation about the fact that they got bought out by some tech company and people are worried it's going to turn to shit, because that happens a lot to interesting digital products when new ownership comes in. So could happen. Hope not. But I guess while it's still mostly Letterboxd, I just want to kind of, I don't know, not sing its praises, but just like talk about why I like Letterboxd so much and why it's very important to me and like why it's like probably my favorite thing on the internet. And I've seen sort of a negative reaction to the way Letterboxd is building itself as being like a media brand now. Like some of the ads are kind of like, and like the shit they do on the red carpet is kind of like kind of cringy to a lot of people, and people are sort of like being like, this is what's wrong with movies. And like, look, they're doing all this stuff to appeal to like the TikTok audience and the sort of people that make parody videos about making fun of directors for liking foreign films and stuff. Like, oh, this person's pretentious. Anything that's not related to Harry Potter is bad or whatever. Like, I know that they're kind of heavily courting that audience and whatever. It's a company, they got to make money, whatever, right? But the very brass tacks functionality of Letterboxd is very important to me. A couple of nights ago, I was just feeling kind of like, just really kind of, I can't even say burnt out anymore because like I haven't been to work in 2 weeks, but just not great, whatever, you know. I have lots of people battle depression. I'm not special, but I've watched a lot of movies to sort of escape and think about other things. But I had a period where like I'll talk about this more, I guess, in the watch what I watched section. But I made this master list of horror movies I wanted to watch, and as what happens every fucking year that I do Hooptober, I end up wanting to just watch other random stuff. So I ended up adding a lot of things to my list because I knew I was already going to be overachieving on the 31 movie thing. So, but there was like one of the days where I was like, I don't really want to watch any. I didn't feel like watching anything really. I'd watched a couple movies. I didn't feel like watching more. And I did a weird thing. I don't know if anyone else has ever done this before, but I basically just went to my diary on Letterboxd, like the log of everything you've watched. And I went to just like the reviews, whatever I logged, whatever I wrote, whenever I made that diary note. And I just read it from when I started using Letterboxd to now. So it was like almost 8 full years of diary entries. And I don't write a review or a log note for everything I log. There's whole periods of time where I'll watch a movie and I'll log it, but I don't write anything. Either because I'm going to write a real review for another publication or something, or like for a while when I started the pod, I wasn't writing any reviews because I was like, oh, I'll save that for the pod, you know? But for the beginning of this month, everything I watch, I'm back to writing reviews. And for the last year or two, when I do write reviews, I tend to take the diary part of Letterboxd kind of more seriously, as if this is like a real journal I'm keeping. I talk about the movies, but I talk about my mind state. I talk about what it meant to me, what it made me think about and stuff. And I already kind of put a little bit of that like autobiographical spin on in my regular reviews to begin with. But on Letterboxd, it's like I'm not beholden to an editor here or views or whatever. I'm just kind of like just putting this on my Letterboxd, you know? And it was like a very crazy experience, actually. Well, not crazy is not the right word. It wasn't crazy, but I started using Letterboxd seriously at the beginning of 2015. So it was like New Year's or some shit. And I just was like, you know, I like this site a lot. I want to use it. But like my biggest thing was I didn't want to use Letterboxd because, you know, I knew when I started my diary or I logged movies as I watched them, it would only show what I'd watched. And it would take a lot of time to like make it accurate to all the movies I have already seen prior to my discovery of this website. So that always held me back from using it. I was like, I don't want to make it look like I only watched like 40 movies. People are going to look at that and they're going to think I didn't really watch any movies. So the first week or two of me using Letterboxd, all I did was I sorted all the movies on the site by like decade. And I just went through and just clicked watch on any one that I've seen for like it took like, I don't know, 7 or 8 nights of doing this before I kind of like maxed out and was like, I think this is every movie I've ever seen. And then over the years that I've used it, I'll bump into a poster and be like, oh yeah, I saw that. It says I didn't see that. I'll click that I saw that so that it's more accurate. Not that it matters, but I guess it mattered to me. So I went to the beginning of my diary and just looked at all the different things. And it was so interesting remembering days and weeks very vividly, like I remember where I was when I saw that, who I was with and stuff like that. And in particular, there was like, well, 2 things kind of came out of it. One is that I'm generally speaking, I find a lot of insecurity. I guess everyone does. Everyone deals with imposter syndrome and stuff like that. But me personally, I very hard struggle with like self-worth and like pride in my own skill level and stuff like that. So I have periods where like I'm just like, well, I'm not good at any of this shit or whatever. And I guess everyone kind of has some of that, you know. I probably just have it slightly more than most. But something that was kind of nice was reading old things I'd written. And my rule for like letterboxd reviews is, typically speaking, either write like a funny, pithy thing. Lots of people do that. Or I'll just try to write whatever it is, like right after I'm done watching the movie. And I try to be like as sort of honest and quick as possible, which is why so many of my letterboxd reviews have typos in them. I never go back and fix them. I rarely go back and fix them. Sometimes one will really bother me. And then at worst, I'll go to sleep and write something right when I first get up. But for the most part, they're kind of like quick, raw little things, you know? And some of them are like really good. I haven't, you know, I would read that. And I'm like, I wrote that? I don't remember having a thought that smart. That was pretty nice. Dom, 4 years ago. Good you know? And there's kind of a bummer period where like throughout the diary, I would see periods where I was only watching movies to review them, only watching them for videos and stuff, and not watching anything for fun. And if I was watching something for fun, I wasn't logging it or writing about it. And that was kind of those times made me sad. But there was several where it was like 2019 in particular, like the year before COVID hit, I'd watched like, I don't know, like 600 or something fucking movies that year. I was like so deep in the process. That was also not a great year for me mentally, but I had movies. I had talking about movies with my friends and stuff. It was very, very good to me. And it was just interesting seeing different things pop up in my reviews or like opinions or things that have changed over time. Sometimes I'd see a movie that I saw again. Like I feel completely differently than I did when I saw it in like 2017 or something. But I think the one that stood out to me the most is I had a night, I guess this is like early 2019-ish, where I watched like the Design trilogy, like those 3 documentaries, like Helvetica, Urbanized, and whatever the other one is. It's like these 3 documentaries about like design and fonts and architecture and shit. And I wrote these like really personal reviews of them that were just like clearly like a guy kind of like mentally spiraling about life and stuff, but instead he's talking about the way these guys talk about like Corbusier lamps and stuff. And it was just really, it was funny. It was funny to me because it was like, I remember specifically how I felt that week, what was going on in my life. And it was very funny to me that I chose my outlet to do this was a documentary about fonts. It was like, here's what I'm going to talk about my issues. So I don't know. It was an interesting experience. It was illuminating. It kind of taught me a lot about myself, I guess. And it was fun. Honestly, it was like fun rereading old reviews. It made me remember threads that I wanted to follow, if that makes sense. Like it made me remember like, oh, I never did follow up and watch that other movie that movie made me want to see. So, you know, went and added things again to my watch list or whatever. And it was cool, I guess. And I think that's why I like Letterboxd so much. Like, you know, social media used to be a thing where it was like, you know, you were kind of keeping a digital version of your life. Like a digital footprint was like, I'm sharing updates about my life. This is what's going on with me. Here's pictures of me and my family. Here's pictures of me with my kids. I don't have any kids or whatever. And I don't use the rest of social media like that anymore at all. You know, I barely use Twitter anymore. And when I did, I used to like argue with people a lot and talk about different things and stuff. And like a lot of those old tweets are just gone just for like safety reasons. And I don't use Facebook anymore. And the last couple of years that I was using it, I was exclusively using it to just share really weird memes and stuff. I wasn't using it to like really talk about my life or my real stuff anymore, just political stuff, I guess. So Letterboxd in a way is like the only social media platform I've used this long, this consistently, and this honestly, you know, like in a way, I mean, this is a super morbid way to put it, so I apologize in advance, but like, if I like died tomorrow, you know, and my overall digital footprint or something of the different places that I exist on the internet, I feel like if you went through my Letterboxd diary, that would probably be like maybe the truest like record of me, you know? I don't know. It was something I was just thinking about. I was like, yeah, I guess I like this site. I like it a lot. I hope it doesn't go away. I love the app. I always have it in a prominent place on my home screen. Like it's a vital fucking app. Like I gotta have it Letterboxd to thumb fucking away in case I gotta remember to log something or whatever. But I don't know. It's really important to me. And especially since like my memory is like not what it used to be, you know? I feel like I have to rely on this external thing. It's like an external hard drive for my memory now at this point. So, but I don't know if you guys use Letterboxd or you don't use it very much or you have been using it for a long time. I know I have friends who I know have used it longer than me. Maybe give it a peruse, you know, go look through your past and stuff. If Letterboxd gets like a on this day memory function, the way like other social media things do or something, like Throwback Thursday, here's what you're watching on October 20, whatever, that could be really weird maybe, but like it could be cool, I think that would be a better function than people asking for like DMs. Letterboxd does not need fucking DMs. Letterboxd does not need to empower any more fucking thirsty weirdos. Please. I swear to God, if Letterboxd gets DMs and I start getting weird fucking messages, then yeah, I guess I'll have to go someplace else. But fucking weirdos. Okay. That's all I wanted to say about that. So let's talk about what I watched. This is gonna be the bulk of the episode, obviously, because I watched so many things. But I want to do things a little bit different this week. I felt like last week I got kind of off the rails because I watched so many things in such quick succession. They didn't do a very good job, in my opinion anyway, of really getting stuff across. So the first thing I want to say is, if you're really curious about what I watched, what my feelings are, if you go to my Letterboxd diary, I did log every movie that I watched and talked about it some, at least like a paragraph or two. So that stuff is going to be more coherent than anything I say in the pod because I wrote them immediately after watching these movies. I'm a day removed from most of the movies at the soonest. And I watched so many of them that there's going to be a little bit like, I'm not going to remember the specific character names. I might not remember. I didn't put a lot of stuff in my notes or whatever about who directed what. So it's going to be very fallible. And I feel like that's a little more honest than if I try to actually make detailed notes for myself like this, because it's just not going to be real. Like it's going to be reading like from Wikipedia or something. So I'm going to group the things that I saw into 3 categories. I'm going to talk about things that were either complete duds, like I wish I hadn't watched them, or were in some way disappointments. Then I'll talk about stuff that I watched that was like fine. This is fine. You're probably good. You should watch it or not, whatever. And then a section just for stuff that I was like actually over the moon for, which, as you might guess, is probably the smallest section, unfortunately. But it happens. It happens every Hooptober. So there's one horror movie I watched one movie I watched that was not a horror movie. My friend Kyle hit me up on IG, and he was like, wow, in the middle of all these fucking horror movies, you had time for a quick rewatch of Kill Bill Volume 1, I guess. And he's correct. I did rewatch Kill Bill Volume 1 because my friend Rob had me on his movie podcast, Let's Watch It Again, to talk about Kill Bill Volume 1, because it's the 20th anniversary of Kill Bill. It came out 20 years ago. And I watched it, very quickly in between some other stuff. I mean, I didn't like speed watch it or something. It's not a very long movie, so I watched it, and then we recorded the pod. So I'll put that in the show notes as well if you want to listen to a pretty good sized episode of me and Rob dissecting Kill Bill Volume 1, talking about our, elder millennial recollections of its original release and different stuff. And we talk about lots of cool stuff. We talk about, what the original screenplay of the movie was like, because I read it when I was a teenager, and then like what, how much Rob doesn't like feet, all sorts of interesting things. So I'll put that in the show notes. It's a fun pod, and Rob is great. I've been on that show a couple other times, and I always have a good time with him. Speaking of getting along with Rob so well, wonderful man. If you don't listen to Rob's show, The Truth in This Art, it's a really good podcast. Based out of Baltimore, he interviews a variety of talented, interesting, vital people to the community in that city, and it's a lot of really great shit. Rob and I, at the end of the month on Halloween, are actually going to be hosting a screening of The Blackening with some people from the movie. Are going to be showing up. We're going to be doing like a little post-show discussion. It's free. It's kind of a small venue, so it's not going to be like a ton of people. I mean, I hope it's full, but I'll put the link to that Eventbrite in the show notes as well. In the event that you're like local and you listen to this and you want to see me asking people questions about a movie and stuff, we did something a few months ago for a screening of Do the Right Thing that was really cool. That was really fun. I love doing stuff with Rob. We're probably going to try to do more like stuff in person. So if you want to catch me outside with a little microphone in my hand, being a serious moderator guy, come to that on Halloween. It's going to be cool. So let's get into what I watched. So I'm just going to kind of run through quickly the shit that I wasn't that into, because like let's be real about some of this stuff, right? Duds or disappointments. I watched Night Terrors, which is a movie that Toby Hooper directed, where Robert Englund plays the Marquis de Sade in flashbacks, and in the present day he plays a descendant of his, and there's like this sex cult, and I thought it sucked. I thought it was actually really not a good movie. It looks kind of like a bad Skin and Max movie. Part of that, I think, is that I had to rent it in like standard def, so it looked like shit on Prime or whatever the fuck it was. But Robert Englund's okay. William Finley, frequent De Palma collaborator, isn't it for a time, is the main character's father. He's really good. He's such a good actor, and everything he's ever been in, he always over delivers. But the rest of the movie was trash. I watched Kuso, Flying Lotus, the musician's directorial debut, which is like this like gross, gnarly, like, I don't remember the filmmaker's name, but the guy that made like Basket Case and stuff like that. It's like very clearly influenced by like his work. It's just a gross, ugly, like non sequitur, Adult Swim comedy themed movie about like a world where there's like this radiation poisoning and everyone's all fucked up and has boils and pus and just a lot of gross shit. It's like one of those movies that's like, I don't know, maybe if I was high, I'd think it was funny, or maybe if I was like fucking 16, I'd think it was good or something, but I was just like, this is just not for me. I didn't know what I thought it was going to be, but I immediately regretted putting it on. Within like 15 minutes, I was like, oh, I'm not going to like this. Like, there's a subplot of like this couple that live together and they just have like kinky sex, and she like chokes him with a belt and jacks him off or whatever, but then like she's like hiding something on her neck, and it ends up being like a living boil, and the boil ends up like giving him a head later. Like, Flying Lotus is such a talented musician. He's made so many beautiful pieces of music, but this movie, I was like, this guy's fucking weird. And like, I know some people are really into weird stuff like that, just the audaciousness of it, just the shock factor of it, but I was not feeling it. There's a couple of kind of funny parts, like Zach Fox, I think, helped write some of the segments and he's in it. But overall, I was like, That same day, I made another fucking gigantic miscalculation, which is that I watched Prisoners of the Ghostland. I think my letterboxd review, I said, Nicolas Cage has taken me places that I would not go with a gun, which is that he's like one of my favorite actors in the world, but some of his movies are just trash. And this is directed by Sion Sono. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. The guy that directed Suicide Club, which is pretty good. I watched that like when I was like 20 maybe. And then Why Don't You Go Play in Hell, which I think I watched in like 2012, which is a fucking amazing movie. That's the last movie. In my mind, I thought I saw more of his movies, but then I looked and I was like, I guess I've only seen 2. But I thought it was going to be really rad, and it was like not. It's kind of like a post-apocalyptic Mad Max sort of thing. Nick Cage is like a bank robber that has to go retrieve like a concubine for the mayor of this like town, and he has to go into the ghost land. He ends up starting a revolution. There's like samurai swords, and it's like one of those movies that like on paper sounds like so my shit, but then I started watching it. It's just really boring. It was like painfully, dreadfully boring, actually. I was very frustrated, and I was like, oh my God. And like Nick's fine in it, but even his performance isn't that exciting. The opening of that movie is like this big, it's like a bank robbery scene. It has like this, all these colors, and it's this very colorful, like bubblegum looking thing that I thought was very cool. The rest of the movie is just like hot trash. Not a fan. I watched We Have a Ghost, which is Christopher Landon, who made Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, and he also made Freaky, like the body swap horror movie. I like Landon a lot. I think he has like a real gift for like 90 to 100 minute sleek, effective, efficient little horror movies that have like a tinge of comedy to them. He's directing Scream 7. He's taken over for the Radio Silence guys. I think that's going to be really good. I think he's a really good fit for the franchise. I like him a lot. We Have a Ghost is the first thing he's ever made for Netflix. So of course the movie's like 2 hours, feels like 3. It's like 6 different movie ideas stuck in one. It's all over the place. This black family moves into a haunted house and they have a ghost, and it's David Harbour is the ghost. He can't talk. David Harbour has this really good central performance as he's a ghost who can't speak. So it's like a kind of a cool, like a lot of cool physicality stuff. It's really good work actually. I love David Harbour. But then it's like, there's like this stuff with like the CIA organization trying to come capture him. They're trying to figure out how he died. So they're trying to solve a murder. The young boy that he becomes friends with, his dad, Anthony Mackie, goes viral for a video of the ghost. It's just so much shit happening. And it's like not funny, not paced well. It's super long. And it really is just more proof that like, if you go make something on Netflix, they will let you do whatever. And some people need to be reined in. It's not a surprise to me that this guy has made a bunch of like well-structured, well-paced movies. And then the first movie he makes that goes this far off the rails is Netflix. Cause like they don't care. Content is content, you know? So it was a bummer. Part of the movie is pretty good. It started off really strong to me, but I was like, oh, this fucking just goes and goes and goes. I watched this yesterday, actually. It's a movie called The Third Saturday in October. I thought it had a cool poster. It's supposed to be sort of like a 70s horror pastiche type thing. It's about this town where there's like a really crazy like football rivalry. I think the football rivalry might be real. I think like the title is from a real, genuine like rivalry between two college ball teams. I don't know football well enough to like confirm that, but I think it was. And there's like a guy who's a killer and like he survives his execution and goes and starts killing more people. But this movie was tedious and I thought it looked like shit and could not wait for it to be fucking over. I was so grateful when it was fucking over. Here's the thing. If you're gonna try to watch like a bunch of horror movies in 1 month, some of them are gonna just be fucking trash. Some of them are just not gonna be good. And you have to get good at like trusting people's takes on letterboxd. You have to be able to look at a movie and if like 10 people you know saw it, figure out who liked it and who didn't, and that'll help you figure out if you're gonna like it. And sometimes people write a bunch of negative stuff and I see something and I'm like happily surprised. And then sometimes I'm like, you lied to me. If I see you give something a really good review and then I watch and I hate it, part of me, it's like, I'll never trust you again. I'll always remember that time you told me this was good and you lied to me. Which is probably how some of you guys feel about me too. So, that's why I always try to be careful when I speak. Oh, this isn't like a full disappointment, but When a Stranger Calls, the original from like 19, whatever the fuck, with Carol Kane. The first 20 minutes of this movie is literally perfect. It's like literal perfection. I absolutely loved it. I was so on board. I'd never seen it before, so I didn't know that the first 20 minutes is essentially kind of like the opening of like Scream. It's kind of like, there's a handful of horror movies that have this thing of like someone being on the phone with a scary person. I guess Dial In for Murder is, not Dial In for Murder. What the fuck is it? There's that radio play, whatever. This is not like a new thing that When a Stranger Calls invented, but it's probably one of the most well executed movies like this. Very similar to Mario Bava is in Black Sabbath, like the telephone, like that short that's also heavily inspired Scream. First 20 minutes, remarkable. I was fucking hooked and amazed, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be so interesting. How they're gonna like drag this out for feature length? Because the remake does that. The remake is just like the opening 20 minutes, but for a whole movie. No, the rest of the movie is like fucking a cop like trying to like catch the killer 7 years later because he got let out on a technicality. And it's just fucking boring. It's just sweaty and boring and fucking tedious. And it sucks. And the last 10, 15 minutes are pretty good because they're kind of similar to the opening 20 minutes. But it's like, who the fuck thought... Like, how did you look at this and go, yeah, let's do this? And then I looked, and apparently it was a short that was successful in some way. And then they wanted him to expand it, the filmmaker to expand it into a feature, and he just added a bunch of story. And I was like, no one cares about the rest of this shit. The short worked, So, I don't know. It's basically all I'm telling you is if you are interested in seeing When a Stranger Calls, just turn it off when the cop shows up. Then the movie's essentially over. Fuck it. So yeah, those are the movies that I watched that I was like, those are fun, I guess, or awful. My next section is, it was fine but not memorable. So I watched The Skull, like a British horror film, and I had this thing. I don't watch a lot of British horror or like the Hammer era, but the couple that I have seen, were primarily like the really good Dracula that Christopher Lee is in. And when I put this movie on, like the first three people I saw were Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and Michael Gough, who played Alfred in the OG Batman movies in the 90s. And like the three of them have been in every British horror movie I watched. So I know that they're not in every British horror movie. But having seen that trinity together this many times, I'm like, is it just always these three guys and just different rotating parts? It's a movie about a bunch of like collectors of arcane ephemera, and they get this skull, and the skull like poisons them or whatever. It looked kind of nice. The performances were cool, but I just didn't really care. Yesterday I watched this movie called Bitch Ass. It's a horror movie that's supposed to be sort of a throwback to like 90s black horror movies. Not that there's even a ton of those for that to be a subgenre that you like homage, but that's what the guy was doing. And it's about this guy named Clarence, who's just like a fat, nerdy black guy in 1980. He lives with an abusive, crazy grandmother, and all the hood kids don't like him, and they bully him, and they torture and scar him. And then he grows up to live in this house with his grandmother, and he wears a mask and a suit. He looks like Frank Miller's The Spirit. It's very weird. But he like kills people by capturing them and making them play games in his grandmother's house. The whole house is rigged with like deadly versions of like Jenga and like Connect 4 and stuff. So this gangster sends his crew to go rob him. And one of the people in the crew was this young nerdy boy who's only trying to work with the crew because he wants to get money for college and help his mom out. But it turns out his mom was Clarence's like love interest back in high school, and that the kingpin making him do this was the guy that scarred him and used to date his mom. So the movie starts with like a sort of like 20 or 30 minute bit that feels like a movie, like it feels like a horror movie. But then like they start doing these flashbacks to him at high school, and then like the adult counterparts get involved, and it becomes this like very heavy like drama. It's very depressing. It's like very dark, and it doesn't play well with how goofy the general concept is. And like the movie shot in this like very, very wide aspect ratio. It's like 2:1, or might be like even wider than that, which is just, it's like this sort of narrow strip that's kind of hard to frame for, or at least hard to frame this story for. And the opening credit sequence uses like a Rubik's Cube, and then like the opening chase is like the frame device stuff from like Ang Lee's Hulk, but they move around like a Rubik's Cube. It's like tries to be innovative in the weirdest ways, you know. And the performances are like okay. Some of the tone felt kind of good, but overall it just kind of felt like, I see what you guys are doing here. I'm just not that crazy about it. Like, it was fine. I was like, okay. Some of these movies I'm extra bothered by because like I chose to add them from my list because I didn't want to watch everything on my list. So like in total, I've now watched like 37 horror movies since October 1st. And it's like 17 movies of my original 31 list. And then I watched all the Friday 13th movies, as you guys know from last week, and then some extra stuff. So I've added even more extra stuff. I'm definitely going to probably hit like 60, 62, 63 by the end of the month, hopefully. But so every time a new movie I added ended up being boring or fine, I was like really mad. Because if something I picked for the list originally ended up not working out, I'm like, oh, that's okay. That happens. But the news extra stuff that I put in, I was like, the extra credit stuff sucks. That's not cool. Then I watched, back to back, I watched 2 Mario Bava movies. As some of you are maybe already aware, I'm a huge fan of Mario Bava. I just like the way he approaches visuals, and I think his movies always look very cool. But I watched Lisa and the Devil, which is like this largely incomprehensible movie about like a tourist who gets ensnared with this like rich family of weirdos. It looked nice. It looked good, but the movie made no fucking sense to me, and I couldn't tell you what actually happened, and I didn't care. Then right after, I watched The Girl Who Knew Too Much, which is really cool for 2 reasons. One, it's structured kind of like an old Hitchcock Wrong Man movie, where this woman, witnesses a murder, but she can't prove it, and a bunch of crazy stuff happens because of it. And it's in black and white. And Mario Bava always films black and white really interestingly. Like there's this very cool contrast and like shadows and stuff. So this is a better movie. The story itself was like fine, but it looked fantastic. I was like really crazy about it. So really nice movie, but not like great. I would not go out of my way to watch it, but it was nice. And then because I was still in that Italian shit, I watched Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key, which is a Sergio Martino movie. I watched a couple of Sergio movies for last year's Hooptober, and I think I did. I might have watched them just randomly, but pretty interesting filmmaker. This movie is kind of like a giallo, but it's very much like a confusing erotic thriller. Like it's a very horny, weird movie that has like 19 different like twists and reveals. It's like there's just a shitty writer, and he's like really abusive towards his wife, and then his niece comes to stay with him, and then like his niece and his wife start fucking, but then he starts fucking his niece, And then there's like all these other people, and these people die, and like he has like a maid who gets killed, and it's just like this all over the thing of people dying and who did it and da-da-da. And then by the end of it, it's like there's a bunch of crazy twists. It's a really good looking movie. Like it has a really like strong like visual style to it, and the performances are all pretty good. And like the woman that plays the writer's niece is like crazy hot, so just cartoonishly hot. But it's just a kind of a mean movie. It's kind of nasty and like mean spirited. But it was good. It was like a pretty good movie. I liked it. I thought it was good. Again, I don't know that good to recommend it to anybody. And then I have a much smaller section that's just two solid movies. One is that I watched The Omen for the first time ever. I thought it was pretty good. I know that people sort of look at The Omen as being like, oh, it's like Richard Donner trying to make The Exorcist. And like, I don't think it's very fair. But it's a nice movie. The Jerry Goldsmith's score is insane and does so much heavy lifting. But the movie itself is really, really pleasant. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I didn't think it was great. Like, I wouldn't go out of my way to watch the other Omen movies. I wouldn't tell you to drop everything and go see The Omen now, but it was good. Gregory Peck, good actor. He's got that thing throughout the whole movie though, where he always looks so wooden and like serious. He's just like, you mean my son is the son of the devil? You know, he's kind of whatever. There's an actor, David Warner, who plays like a photographer in the movie. And when I was a kid, he voiced Ra's al Ghul on the Batman animated series. He's also the scientist in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze. And I've always had a real soft spot for David Warner. He's also the drama professor, like the director in Scream 2, actually. I like David Warner a lot. It's just nice when you watch this many movies and you get to see a lot of character actors you like. You're like, oh, hey, that's that guy. I like that guy. But then I went to the movies. I actually went across the street to flex my Regal Unlimited power. And no 40X for me this time. The theater near me does not have 40X, which is pleasant, thank God. But I went and saw The Exorcist Believer, the new David Gordon Green Exorcist legacy sequel, and it was like fine. It was like a fine movie. I thought it was good. I think it's kind of getting a bad rap. I thought the actual exorcism scenes and stuff were like whatever. But the first like half of the movie, I thought the human drama element was good. I thought it was pretty captivating. I thought the performances were good. It overall was not really for me, but I didn't think it was fair that people were like shitting on it. People were like, what a fucking horrible movie. I saw someone on Twitter say they wish he goes to hell. I didn't know that The Exorcist had shooters. You know what I mean? Like, it's whatever. Like, they've made a bunch of sequels that are also not great, right? So I don't know. I thought the movie was like fine. I mean, I paid 50 cents to, book a seat for it in the app or whatever. So maybe that kind of helps it. But like, I thought it was fine. I don't know that if I was not a Regal Unlimited member for the rest of this month, if I would actually have gone to see it. I would have had to go to like work to watch it, which I did not want to do. But it was fine. I think I'll try to remember to link to it in the show notes. If not, it's definitely, I think I linked to it in my letterboxd log. But Ramon Villalobos, comic book artist extraordinaire, hilarious guy, new metal enthusiast, had a really, really thoughtful little review of it on his letterboxd. I thought it was like one of the only like thoughtful, like pleasant observations about the movie that I saw online. Everyone else was just like, fuck this movie. And like David Ehrlich tried to say it was anti-abortion and all this other crazy shit. So it was kind of nice to see someone have some like interesting and pleasant thoughts about it. And Ramon's a really smart, thoughtful guy. So it was kind of cool to see. But then I did a double feature that day. I also watched a movie called, we're now going to go into the category of shit I'm telling you to go fucking watch right now. And this movie, When Evil Lurks. I don't know if it's playing near you. I don't know how many screens it's on this week, but it's a Spanish film. And I wanted to see something other than just The Exorcist, and it was the only other horror movie that was playing, other than The Nun 2, but I haven't seen The Nun 1, so I was like, maybe we'll do that later in the month or something. But I just picked When Evil Lurks. I don't know anything about it. I don't know the filmmaker. I knew nothing going in. I just seen a couple of like positive reviews on Letterboxd. I didn't read into them. I just saw good star ratings. And I was like, that could be cool. Why not? I like different kinds of horror. This movie was one of the best things I've seen all year, regardless of genre. And two, it is so fucking gnarly. This movie's so grim and bleak and fucked up, and I loved it. It is a movie that takes place in like some kind of future, like near future, where there's like a zombie-esque epidemic, but it's not zombies, it's like people being possessed. And there's this very complex mythology and lore to how it all works. But basically, like, if a demon possesses someone, they call them rottens. Their body starts to like literally rot, and it begins the process of a demon being born into our world, right? And there's all these rules, like if you kill a rotten with a gun, then like you get it cursed by it. So like there's a bit in the movie where a character kills a rotten cow, he shoots it in the head, and then his wife immediately kills him with an axe. And then his wife, right after that, kills herself by slapping herself in the face with an axe until she dies. And it's really brutal. It's very gory, but it never feels like it's gory for fun. It never feels like it's gory for like shits and giggles. It always feels like it's gory because like this world is cursed and there is no God and everything is fucked. And there's this one shot in the movie. If you don't see it, I don't want to ruin it for you necessarily because it really got me. But there's this bit of very visceral violence that happens out of nowhere. And I was just like, took my breath away. I was like, I did not anticipate this being a kind of movie where that happens. Oh my God. But it's really well made. It's the world building is really good. The way the filmmakers delineate information to you throughout the story is interesting. Good performances. Just a movie that really just hammers home this feeling of hopelessness. That like there is no one coming to save us. Everything's just fucked and you have to kind of try your best. But I also like how it kind of characterizes a lot of the evil as not being like hell or demons or demonic, but as much as it's like it really preys on like fear and bad thoughts and negativity, and I thought that was really interesting and cool. It actually was similar to kind of some of the shit in The Exorcist Believer, but just like better, like just way better. Really remarkable movie. If it's playing near you, please see it. If not, I want to say that I think maybe Shudder released it, so they might put it on Shudder by the end of the month. But if you have an opportunity to see When Evil Lurks, please go see it. And then I also saw The Devils, which is a Ken Russell movie. Of the movies that I put on my list, this is the least horror. Like it's technically, I guess it's a horror movie, but it's like this fucked up religious story. The only other Ken Russell movie I've ever seen is, I don't even actually think I've seen all of Tommy, but I guess Tommy, the Who thing. What a movie. What a filmmaker. It's a story of this like 17th century French like priest, I think, played by Oliver Reed, who's a very imperfect man, and he sleeps with a lot of women in his congregation or whatever you call it. And then like they start getting, fucked from the outside by these people who are trying to kind of take over every small village for France or whatever. And Vanessa Redgrave plays this like nun who's like really repressed and horny for Oliver Reed's character. She's like obsessed with him. So she lies about him and claims that he like did all these things to her and that he's possessed by the devil. So he basically gets like put on trial for like what is essentially witchcraft and like devil worshipping. And it ends up being this really ridiculous movie. Not ridiculous, maybe, but it's a really effective movie about like religion and how it can repress people, but also how much hypocrisy can be in it, but the way people wield it for power and stuff. Really great visuals, really great cinematography, really cool production design. The sets and stuff of this movie are really good. Oliver Reed's performance is really, really good though. Oliver Reed basically, he died filming Gladiator because he like challenged a bunch of like Navy men to like a drinking contest and like died because he drank too much. He was like just a violent alcoholic. But here in his like prime, he just looks kind of like Jermaine Clement, but like hotter and like more daddy. So like it's very believable in the movie that a nun would like say that he was the devil because she wanted to fuck him so bad, which is essentially the plot of this movie. But he is remarkable. There's a bit where he's like sort of on court and he says, "Call me vain and proud, the greatest sinner to ever walk God's earth, but Satan's boy I could never be. I haven't the humility." And everything he says in the movie sounds like that. Every line is like that kind of hard ass line. So I really loved the movie. I thought it was not at all what I was expecting. Not really the vibe of the other horror movies I've been watching, but that movie fucking rules. It's really fucking good. So I definitely had to pirate it because I don't think it's like on any streaming service. But if you find a way to get a hold of the movie or whatever, you should. It's really, really good. And then, I watched much more chill-ish movie. I watched Totally Killer, which is on Prime right now. I think it's a Prime original. It's directed by Nahnatchka Khan, who worked on the show Young Rock, the show about The Rock when he's young. And she got her start, I think, as a writer on like Malcolm in the Middle. I think she worked on the show Pepper Ann. She also created Don't Trust the Bitch in Apartment 23. And her brother is Nick Khan, the current CEO of WWE, or whatever his current title is since the TKO merger. But anyway, I was not a huge fan of Young Rock. I've never seen anything else she's made. But this is a really sweet movie. It has like 3 or 4 writers or something, so I don't know how much she was involved with that. But it's basically in the vein of like Happy Death Day. The way Happy Death Day is a slasher that's also a time loop movie. This is a slasher that's also a time travel movie. And Kiernan Shipka, the Don Draper's daughter from Mad Men grown up, she is like a girl in 2023. Her mom is played by the mom from that popular ABC comedy with Ty Burrell. I don't remember her name. I'm not gonna look it up. Whatever. She was the love interest in Happy Gilmore. You guys know her. Whatever. That's who plays her mom. This is embarrassing. Anyway, and her dad is this is embarrassing. I'm just gonna fucking look up. This is terrible. Call yourself a professional. This is so bad, but I don't remember these fucking people's names. I have to look it up on my goddamn phone. But again, this is like what happens when you watch like several movies. They all just kind of blur. But Totally Killer. Lachlan Monroe plays her dad, who is like a really fun support like character after you've seen some of this stuff. Her mom is Julie Bowen, and Julie Bowen's from fucking Modern Family. I can remember any Modern Family, Jesus. Anyway, her mom survived a serial killer in 1987. All her friends got killed by this like slasher, and then the slasher comes back and kills her. And then Kieran Shipka's best friend built a time machine and accidentally sends her back to 1987. So she tries to prevent her mom's friends from being killed and also catch the killer. And it's very much Back to the Future vibes, but they do a really good job of establishing this whole town in the present day and then making a lot of fun stuff out of all of the people that run this town as teenagers in the past. And her finding out that her mom was like a mean girl and then all the girls that got killed, everybody hated them because they were so awful to people. And just how the dynamics shift from high school to present day and stuff. My only beef with the movie is there's a lot of comedy that's just like Kiernan Shipka calling things problematic. Kind of be like, oh my God, the 80s were crazy. And like that stuff stops being funny almost immediately. But the tone is really good. The performances are nice. It's funny. It's genuinely engrossing. Like the actual mystery of it is really good. I really liked it. I'd seen a few people log it and say it was like stupid or something, but I was really into it, man. I was like kind of bummed that any of my friends were like, I feel bad that anyone else didn't enjoy it because I had a lot of fun with it. Actually, I thought it was really, really entertaining. So Totally Killer. If you're looking for something that's like fun and light on the horror side, definitely watch it. And then I'll try to be brief about this. For the Baltimore Beat, I needed to write about a horror movie because it's that time of the month and a year. And I wrote about, I'm so grateful that this publication let me do this. I wrote about DOGFACE, A Trap House Horror, which is a movie that is streaming on Peacock. It is essentially like a Tubi horror movie. I watched it earlier this year at the behest of my friend Cody. I was having a very bad night. I remember what was going on. I was in a horrible mood and I was texting him and I was just whining about whatever. And he was like, stop what you're doing and watch DOGFACE, A Trap House Horror. And I was like, I've fallen for this shit before, man. Like, I love Cody to death, and I love my friend Justin Davis to death, but the two of them have gotten me to watch some real fucking garbage before. They both pull the fucking Lucy Van Pelt on me all the time. So when Cody told me to watch something called DOGFACE, A Trap House Horror, I thought it was a rib, and I was like, fuck you for making me do this, but whatever. But I was having a bad enough night that I risked it. And I watched this movie, and it was an insane experience. I have only given 12 movies on Letterboxd 5-star ratings. Only 12. Only 2 of them are horror movies. One is Blood Diner, which is a movie from the 80s that is also remarkable and everyone here should see it. And the other is DOGFACE, A Trap House Horror. And I rewatched it the other day so I could write about it for the paper. And it's still remarkable. I don't want to like go too long in the movie really, because I do have a thing coming out that I wrote about it. But I talked about this in my end of the year video last year too, as being one of my favorite watches of the year. If you take nothing away from this episode of the pod, I am fucking begging you to watch DOGFACE, A Trap House Horror on Peacock. Please. Like, I don't care if you don't do anything else I ever ask ever again, but if you could watch this movie, it would mean the world to me. And if you can watch it and then go into the comments on the YouTube version of the pod and tell me what you think about it or talk about it, like, it would be so important to me. This movie is so fucking weird. It's so cheap looking. It is 75 minutes long, and it is the most complicated, convoluted, confounding, ambitious horror thing I've ever seen, essentially. It literally starts off being about a drug dealer who buys what he thinks is a haunted trap house. And then the first 18 minutes of the movie has like 15 different fucking reveals. Like, there's just, you think, okay, this will be a movie about a drug dealer who has to deal with a haunted trap house. Fine. But then it's like, oh no, now like time passes differently in the house versus outside of it. Oh no, now things are going missing in the house. Oh no, a man who says he's his father, who just got out of jail that he's never met before, comes over. Now he's hallucinating a woman on a leash in the house. Now he finds out that the prison calls him and tells him his father died in prison. So who is this man in his house? And then there's a man with the face of a dog just starts killing people. And then the main character wakes up and that was a dream. And there's a whole other movie after that. It literally has like the structure of like the Thriller video, if the Thriller video was an hour and a half long and that it kept following that pace but faster. I think I wrote in my review that'll be out next week that it's like if David Lynch directed Snow on the Bluff. It's like if Alejandro Jodorowsky directed Ballerblocken. It is as if you watched like the first 3 or 4 seasons of Lost in the span of one episode of Lost. Like, there is so much weirdness in the movie. And then the last 15 minutes are the craziest last 15 minutes of any movie I've ever seen. Like, I was talking to Cody about this the other day after we watched it, and I was like, I would give anything in the world for a sequel to this movie. Because the whole movie, the first hour or whatever, leaves you with all these questions. Like, this doesn't answer anything. It's all just so confusing and weird. And the last 15 minutes nukes all of that and leaves you with like 50 more questions. It is so crazy. And the guy that directed it, his name's Felix Jordan. He wrote and directed it. It's his first movie. He's worked in the industry as like a second unit director on like, or like just a crew guy on a bunch of different big movies. He's worked on like Avengers Endgame. He's worked on like Joker, lots of different stuff. And this is his first movie. And it's like, I want him to get the sequel. He has a new movie coming out that he directed called Toxicity that has nothing to do with DOGFACE A Trap House Horror. I hope it's like a backdoor pilot or something, or I hope it is in the same cinematic universe. DOGFACE is so unique. It is so interesting. I this got cut from my review because I went way too long and I just have no restraint. But if I was given the choice for appropriation of public taxpayer dollars, okay, and I had the choice between universal healthcare or a sequel to DOGFACE A Trap House Horror with Felix Jordan at the helm, completing his story with all the money he needs, everyone would just have to accept Obamacare for a little bit longer until I get my sequel to DOGFACE A Trap House Horror, it is so vital that the rest of this story be told. I need to understand who Dogface is and was. I need to know what was going on with the witches. There is so much in this 75-minute movie that is still just a mystery to me, and I need to fucking know. So if you have a spare 75 minutes sometime in the near future, please watch Dogface, A Trap House Horror on Peacock. Okay? Pay for the extra $4.99 to not have to watch it with ads or whatever. You get the WWE Network bundled with it. It's a good deal. Please watch Dogface, A Trap House Horror, and then come back here and report your findings. Right now, the only people on this wavelength right now that I know, Cody's on it. My friend Jeff has seen it. He's down. I haven't got anybody else down with Dogface yet, but Dogface needs to become a phenomenon. This needs to be the next Rocky Horror, the next Room. Like, everyone should see it. Repertory theater should play it once a month. There should be shadow casts. It is so important. If somehow Felix Jordan hears this, he liked a tweet I think I made about it once, or he might have liked it on Letterboxd or something. I don't want to sound like I'm being facetious about your movie or being ironic or anything, or I don't want you to think I'm making fun of you, because obviously the movie has some issues and stuff, but I truly believe this is a real phenomenon. I feel like it's a real accomplishment, and I don't know, maybe your friends make fun of this movie or think it's stupid or something, or maybe you don't feel like it was a real achievement or whatever. I don't know you, I don't know what you're like, but I hope you know that I watch hundreds of movies a year and I've never seen anything like this. And I maybe never will again unless you can get the sequel off the ground. Now, maybe I'll meet Felix Jordan and he'll be like, dude, I was just fucking around. I don't take this very seriously, and I'll be hurt. But I hope and pray, one, that you all listen to me and watch this movie, and then two, if you don't, that they make a sequel, and it's such a big deal that you have to. Regardless, you guys got to watch this movie. So please watch Dogface. All right, last thing. We have just enough time for a couple of questions. I'm dead fucking serious. You have to watch this movie. All right, question 1. Roberts2931 asks, question for next time. Did you read Gods #1? And if so, what did you think of Gods? Okay, so a few episodes ago, I talked about Jonathan Hickman and his Ultimate Universe reboot shit. And I've read the final issue of that too, and it was fine. I guess whatever. I'm actually not that interested in seeing where it goes, to be entirely honest now. But he also has a book coming out called Gods, and I've heard rumors that this book originated as a thing he was going to do with the Fourth World of DC, Mr. Miracle and Barda and all that stuff. And then he kind of retailored it to Marvel. I don't know. But basically, the first issue was $9 or something. And it's extra long. And it's Valerio Schiti is the artist. Valerio. Wait, was wait, I'm saying that. I don't know if it's even true, actually. I thought it was Valerio. I'm embarrassed. I just keep not knowing things. Was it Valerio? Yeah, okay, I'm not done. It was Valerio, sorry. I really liked Valerio's work. Prior to this, he worked a little bit with Hickman when he was on the Avengers. But anyway, it's called Gods, Gods, and it is a Secret to the Marvel Universe type thing. The only book that's done this secret history of the Marvel Universe thing well, in my opinion, is Matt Fraction and Terry Dodson had Defenders, which did not last, but was very fun and interesting and different. And then Hickman himself did some stuff like this in his S.H.I.E.L.D. book. Well, in the Secret Warriors book, which was a book about the history of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then S.H.I.E.L.D., which was involved Leonardo da Vinci and all this crazy stuff. Both of those are pretty cool. This, I was not crazy about. I thought the art was good. I feel like when I was reading Ultimate Invasion, I thought that the fact that it was written a little bit in that decompressed Bendis, Mark Miller, early 2000s way was on purpose. But then reading this, there was no charts, I don't think. First of all, a Hickman comic with no charts? Fuck that. But not only were there no charts, it was just wall to wall, dialogue and kind of corny repartee, and it just did not feel right. It just did not work for me. It almost felt like what would happen if Hickman wrote a Hellblazer comic in the Marvel Universe with a bigger budget, and it was not. I don't know, man. Like, it's the sort of thing that normally I would read a few more issues before I actually judge it, but I have no interest in reading another one. By the time I got to the end of it, I was like, there's going to be more like this? No, thank you. It's probably the most disappointing Hickman thing I've maybe ever read, actually. I like almost everything he's done. Did not like this at all. Like, you're doing this instead of following up on like the Black Monday murders or whatever? No, thank you. What did you think about it, though? Let me know in the comments. And then final question from my good friend Futura. Gotta ask now for the next episode. What would be the right horror movie and scene that would benefit from being screened in a 4DX auditorium? Not advertising it's a 4DX screening and then just do one 4DX thing at just the right moment. First of all, that's a super fucking unhinged thing to do to people. Like, first of all, you're probably going to actually kill someone. So anyway, here's how I do it. If you could have... This is so fucking unhinged. If you could have one singular 4DX moment in a horror movie specifically. Well, I mean, I have two answers. One that's funny and one that's not. One is in Jason Takes Manhattan, if they actually had the scene where Jason punches that guy's head off the roof. If you, just for that scene, had the seats rumble like crazy right when the punch happened, that would be very funny to me, but I don't know if that was actually the most effective use of the technology. I would say, I really sort of feel like, if you had the original Scream, like the first one, and the only time the stuff kicked in was when Drew Barrymore dies, like just the stabbing scene. Because like it does a thing that happened a lot to me in Saw X, where like you would get punched in the back and it kind of felt like being stabbed. If that happened right when she finally bit it, like in the beginning of that movie, I think that would be kind of crazy. Because the rest of the movie, you'd keep thinking it was going to happen again, and then it wouldn't. It would just be, oh no, we only did this one part of the movie. I think that'd be kind of fucked up, putting people on edge already throughout a pretty suspenseful film. So that's how I would do it. Because I feel like any more complicated or interesting application might actually kill someone. And I don't know that I want that on my head. So that does it for the pod this week. Thank you guys for joining me and listening. Obviously, if you are watching this on YouTube and you like this episode, give it a thumbs up. If you love this episode, subscribe. Hit the little bell icon to get notifications whenever I put out new videos. The movie that I'm seeing tomorrow night will definitely have its own dedicated video about it next week before the next episode of the pod. So people who miss the regular video content hopefully will be pleased with that. And if you have any questions for future episodes, please ask those in the comments below. You can also just @ me on Twitter. You can find me on Blue Sky. You can hit me up on Instagram. You can email me at armchairauteur@gmail.com. Any way you want to get questions to me, you can get into me and I will answer them on the pod. I love answering your questions. But if you're listening to this not on YouTube, if you're listening to this on any other podcasting platform, please subscribe or follow me there. Please leave a review or a rating. Let your friends know about this pod if you like what I do here and you want to share it with your friends. Thank you guys again, as always. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting the show and spending this time with me every week. I really appreciate spending the time with you. So we'll talk soon.